It is the 14th of August 2023. You're welcome to Issues at Hand, and Protea Hotel by Marriott Entebbe will always be there for comfort and luxury at its best. You are welcome to today's show. Here we look at some of the issues affecting us economically, socially, spiritually, and most of all politically. But today we are going to look at a very, very, very interesting topic, and that is from NIRA, where they do registration for death certificates, birth certificates, as well as national IDs. As Ugandans, we do need these discussions to understand exactly how we're supposed to do these things. How are we supposed to register our children's birth certificates? How are we supposed to register our parents' death certificates? And then how are we supposed to get our national IDs and be identified as Ugandans? In studio with me is James Keitirima from NIRA, the national... No, he will tell us NIRA in full as he introduces himself. You're welcome.
Thank you, Karira.
Yes.
My name is Keitirima James. I work with NIRA as a district registration officer.
Okay.
And like you asked, NIRA is the National Identification and Registration Authority.
Okay.
So this is an institution of government that was put in place by the Act of Parliament of 2015, what we call ROPA, Registration of Persons Act. So given the mandate to register all citizens, to register all birth and death, to even go ahead and register what we call aliens.
Aliens.
These are non-nationals who reside in the country legally to be registered, though we haven't taken that mandate, and that is a story for another day. But apparently we are looking at the registration of citizens as the most important thing.
Okay, so people who registered their IDs in 2014, these are expected to expire this year, and there's a new registration going on?
No. Instead, there are preparations going on to have those registrations, those cards that are going to renew beginning 2024, be renewed. The institution and government is in charge, and all preparations are going on as planned.
So
the most important thing that I want to put forward is that so many people have been told that, we are going to pay to have your card renewed. This is a government program. Like the same in 2014, how you acquired your ID for free, it is the same way you're going to have your ID given to you in 2024 and subsequent years for free.
Just before we get to the national IDs, now let's start with the child. Let's start from the grassroots.
Yeah, sure.
Recently on Twitter, NIRA posted that though it's not a requirement for a child under the age of 9 months to be carried to the registration center, a parent took it upon themselves to go and look for a birth certificate as well as a NIN number for their child. But let's look at the birth certificates. At what age do children require birth certificates? Is it at birth, or can they walk out of the hospital without it and then come to NIRA later?
Thank you. And maybe this is basically, like I had been told, this is basically, I felt we should discuss more about what we call birth and death registration. It is very key because, before I even go to the processes, how where and when you should get it, is that people should know, Ugandans and our viewers outside there, that having a birth certificate is a birthright. It's an entitlement. To many of us who have traveled, or many of you who have traveled out there, you even know that if, let's say, let me use an example, you are in America and you give birth from there, your child must be given a birth certificate from there.
True.
Even when an American is here and gives birth from here, it's a birthright that person gets a birth certificate from here. This is what I identify. That's why we call it a birthright. So therefore, what are we saying? That going forward, we've been having initiatives that we've rolled on health centers and main hospitals to do what we call birth registration. So what happens there? When a mother, and actually we are going to begin on the initiative of saying mothers going forward should endeavor to give birth from the hospitals. Now, in all government hospitals, we have departments we call records officers, where they record all births that happen at every hospital. So when you give your birth from there, the hospital records officer gives you what we call a birth notification. What does a birth notification mean? This is to notify that Carol Nowamani or so-and-so James Keitirima was born from this facility on this date, and this is the sex of the child, this is the age and all these particulars. And these are the parents of the child. So all these particulars are put in that birth notification, what we call a short. You know, you've had so many people say, where is my short and all this? So once you have that, then after maybe you've left the hospital, now you're free to come to NIRA. What are you required of? You're going to carry the photocopies of national IDs of both the mother and the parent. If maybe they have one parent, we say at least one parent. And then pay 5,000 in the bank and go to NIRA and process your birth certificate. Birth certificate is instant. It's not like how we do with national IDs, you know, because of the volumes. Say, you know, you've registered today and you're going to come back after 3 weeks or 2 weeks, you know, to pick your ID. Here is something where you walk in and then you have your ID process. And many times, maybe when we've been told, you know, come after 2 or 3 days, it's because the volumes are many. But, you know, most of these services have been decentralized. Whereby you find like out of 140 districts, apparently we are in 118 districts, plus all the divisions of Kampala, 5 divisions of Kampala. Talk about Kawempe, Makindye, Rubaga, Central, and, you know, Kololo headquarters at the airstrip. All these stations are open and they are offering all those services.
Okay.
But what happens, and I would want to put that record straight, is that most parents, these parents at some point also have been a bit negligent. You know, when they give birth, they don't demand for their documents. So they just merely walk away. And when they walk away, then you find when need comes, then this mother is running helter and skelter back and forth, you know, first go to the hospital, get this. And you know, there is this scenario when maybe you're going to give birth, let's say look at the public service standing orders and whatever, people tend to give them 90 days of leave.
Yeah.
And we usually say in those 90 days, chase those things because you're still home. You don't know what happens after the 90 days, you're back at work and the hustle, you know, begins. And it is going to be a little bit hard for you. So that is basically that. Then to elaborate more about child registration, because it is very important. Apparently there is, with so many so many agents of government and, you know, government has realized that every Ugandan must be registered. You know, you've seen the initiatives like Ministry of Education in the implementation of the new curriculum. You've seen so many people wanting to travel out of the country and want to make passports for their children. So what we are saying now is that, and this comes to the same question you are asking me, who registers and what do they do? And that's what I want to break it down for us here. That now you cannot even have a birth certificate unless you have a NIN. What is a NIN? That is a national identification number.
Yes.
In a data language which we call, or I take world, a unique identifier. A unique identifier, that is a unique number given to you that if anyone logs into a system of a particular organization or database, someone can retrieve the information of that very person.
Okay.
So that is what we call a unique identifier. That's why you see your NIN number will always be your NIN number. You cannot share it with anyone else.
Okay.
It is your name. So what we are saying, we are adding more value to a birth certificate. And we are saying now, have this child registered, have this child's NIN number, and be included on the birth certificate. So that now when you go to immigration and you're processing a travel document for this young girl or boy, then, you know, it's a matter of entering in the information and all come through. So what we are saying is that child registration has become important now. And now we've started from what we call 0 to above, unlimited. Because the adult registration has always been continuous. We've never stopped any single day to say, you know, but it's continuous. But later we said, there is no way we're going to leave these numbers at the bottom. We must go down and register. And these are some of the key areas I would want to us to know. That if you have a child who is 0 to 3 years. You get?
Yes.
0 to 3 years. That child is taken to NIRA, or is actually, if you don't have time, don't take that child, because one, we don't capture their biometrics, neither do we take their pictures. You get the point?
Yes.
So that is key. But after that, we process a NIN number for that child. Because we need that NIN number, so once the mother gets or the parent gets this NIN number, it can be included on the birth certificate. Then what we call 3 years to 6 years, we capture what we call an image. Now we don't capture the biometrics, but rather we take the image. Now 6 years, that means a parent must go with that child to the registration center,
Of course.
to the nearby registration center, so they can capture those details. Then what we say, then 6 years and above. Now those ones we capture both.
Okay.
We capture the biometrics, and at the same time we take the picture. So, and basically we usually say 6 and 16, because here, and I want to put this right, is that once a child gets 16, we assume that person has reached the age of transactional age. You know, you can start transacting, they are going to university, they are doing all those things. So they need that document, a national ID. That's why you see at 16, even if you're a child who registered in school, like for example, we've had a series of activities like the Learners Exercise of 2017, if you remember, where we rolled out all schools in the country.
I remember.
And most of them were still minors. So we say that once you get to age of 16, then go to any nearest NIRA center and update your information so that your card can come out. So that is basically the child registration that we've carried out a series of activities in our regional or in our divisional offices, in our up-country offices and the district offices to make sure that we reach out all these children, especially who are in school, because you find that the age of 3 to 16 and whatever is usually what we call the school-going age. So the schools have been our area of interest to reach out to all these children. Yeah, sure.
All right. So how exactly do you carry out the mass registration for these certificates from 0 to 16 years? And when they get to 16 years, you've mentioned that they change. They're supposed to update their information. Does anything change in there? Do they have to maybe get a new NIN number, or it's the same NIN number?
The NIN remains the same, like I told you. We never change that information. The NIN, you assign the NIN once and it will be forever.
Even if you're 1 year old, your NIN will remain your NIN?
Will remain your NIN forever. Talk of other things, maybe change of parents. You know, at the time of registration, maybe you could not have known your parents. Then at a particular point when maybe the 10 years, for example, so many people were bothered, and maybe this answers the same. Bothered, why are we renewing, and why is the national ID expiring? We believe we change. What I was 10 years is not how I look like today.
Very true.
And absolutely, it is important. Or even the address, what we call place of residence, has changed. Probably then I was in Imbarra to Dam in Kampala, and the next time, and I would want to collect that information and have it right on my national ID. So basically also we allow in those things. And the mere fact that we take them when they are minor, they still have their liberty to, when they come of age, to change that information at no cost.
Thank you. So what are some of the needs where someone will need a birth certificate? Maybe just to point out to our viewers so that they see the need to take their children for registration of birth certificates. When does somebody need a birth certificate?
A birth certificate is needed. And like I told you, it's a birthright. I'll give you a simple scenario. Sometime back, I interfaced with a client who left this country in 1979. you're well versed with what happened in 79 with expulsion of Asians in Uganda.
Yeah.
But this person had been born from here and was operating in one of our districts, I think in Bali. But then over time he had left. But he had left with a birth certificate got from the registrar, whatever, signed and everything. And so when this person was applying for citizenship of another country, they said, where were you born? Do you have a birth certificate? So this person had to come back here to Uganda to process their birth certificate. And that's how important this document is.
Wow.
And so we're talking about birth registration. And many people tend to think it only affects the children. No. It cuts across from a child of 0 day one to me and you. Because at the end of the day, like I told you, from the time NIRA was put in place and given the mandate to register person under the act, under the ROPA, what we call the Registration of Persons Act, it was given the mandate to register. And almost of the birth certificate we used to get at the sub-counter, those papers you'd go at the sub-counter and, someone signs there, and they give you, and tomorrow you can change, and another day you can change. People were really messing up with information. And we needed to, so here NIRA came up and needed to build a robust system of tracking every birth that happens in this country and issue that birth certificate, and the records remain for generations. And even people who will come after us can find and track that information. So therefore you're asking, when and why is it important to our viewers, to go there? One, let me actually steal exams for you. For example, UNEB is saying, there is no child that is going to sit for P7 or any candidate classes, talk about P7, Senior 4 and Senior 6, without a NIN number and without a birth certificate. Okay. Because apparently now, your NIN number will be appearing on your pass slip and at the same time on your certificate. That's how important it is. Because for so many reasons, to stop impersonation and so many things, they came up and they realized that this was the best strategy to put. So, meaning all school-going children, they need that. I've seen at the universities, now they are backing up what we call biodata something. Most of the universities that tell you see children coming up with, so I need a birth certificate, I need this. So the integration and the data now institutions are trying to realize that data is very important and it rotates around a birth certificate. Now, those who are traveling out of the country, if you have your child and you want to process a passport and you go to immigration, the first requirement is, do you have a birth certificate? Do you have a NIN number for your child? So that one has become also mandatory. Some schools which are a bit serious here, when you're changing a school to some of us or you who have kids, they will tell you where is the birth certificate for your child. Because it is, remember earlier on national registration we said, when you're below 16 years, you only hold a NIN number and a birth certificate. Meaning it is the only document you have that is making you, access all these services and all that, and all these institutions of government. So meaning it becomes mandatory that you must acquire that thing. Then, like I told you, is what makes you a Ugandan. What makes me a Ugandan is my place of birth, my birthright, that I was born in Uganda, I was born in Mulago, on this date, my parents are this and this, and no one can take away that from me.
Okay. Well, I would like to get to the national IDs. Of course, that was the birth certificate part of it. And of course, if you are a parent out there, you know exactly what to do now that we have had it from the National Identification and Registration Authority. You are supposed to go to them and get a NIN number for your child as well as a birth certificate, because you could need it and at any time when they're going to school, when they're going out of the country, and many other options. Now let's get to the national ID. Is the most important thing. I think the most important part of a Ugandan. Every Ugandan is required to have a national ID, including the president of Uganda. We saw him coming out and displaying his national ID for all of us to get an example and see. But there are some Ugandans who are still not registered. But anyway, let's start from the masses. We are about 4.6 million Ugandans, or 5 million now that people are giving birth every day. And I'm just wondering, isn't it a little bit hard for NIRA to process IDs for the whole country, 5 million people?
Carol, if I can note that down, and maybe I will take a little bit back. There is something I wanted to hint on birth registration and birth certificate acquisition.
Okay.
Before we get to that.
That's fine.
There are some jargons or some words that we use and people do not understand them, and I want to clarify them today. For example, people talk about community birth and hospital birth. I wanted to bring that clear. That what do we mean by a community birth and a hospital birth?
Okay.
A community birth, this is whereby me and you, or some of us who are born from maybe my background where I come from, my mother was in the garden or was grazing and they gave birth to me.
Yeah.
So that one becomes what we call a community birth. And that community birth, when you're going to apply for a birth certificate, now you don't go to the hospital. You go to your sub-county or your town clerk within your area, and then you get what we call a birth notification. So that short birth node, yours, you pick it from the sub-county or the town clerk, depending where you are, because you were part of the community birth. Now, we have these other kids who are born from the hospital. Now, these ones are born in the hospital, and like I told you, they're what we call records in the hospital. So those ones, that's where you go and pick your birth notification. Notification, because the birth certificate is issued by NIRA. So you first get the notification to notify that so-and-so was born from here.
And hospital.
And hospital.
Both of them are the same.
Both of them are the same, but one clarifies where you're born. I'm part of the community birth, or I'm part of the
hospital
birth.
Okay.
If me, I was born from my community, Isinjiro, somewhere, and this was born from Mulago, you go to Mulago, me, I will go to my sub-county chief in Isinjiro, and I saw was born from this, and they will give me my notification. Because my records are not at the hospital, but rather are at the
community,
at the village, at the community. Thank you.
So everybody is entitled to a birth notification.
Yes.
Okay.
And you don't stop there, because a birth notification is like 1% of the processes.
Okay. Actually,
having it doesn't mean anything. It only notifies that this, and therefore proceed, go pay 5,000, put the IDs of your parents' photocopies, go to NIRA, submit, and get that. Then on the lastly, the cost implication on the birth certificates. And so many people have been cheated out there. You know, you're told the birth notification, a birth certificate costs 100, people are charged 1 million and all sorts of things. A birth certificate costs free. 5,000, sorry, for Ugandans.
So let's clarify. The birth certificate, you are supposed to pay 5,000 shillings.
5,000 shillings.
To NIRA.
You pay it in the bank.
But
plus other bank charges of like 2,000, depending on which bank you're going to. So that is for a birth certificate. And so is a death certificate.
Okay.
So all of them cost 5,000.
All right.
Then there is what we call foreigners. If you're non-Ugandan and you give birth from here, yours goes for $40. If you can compute it to Ugandan shillings, then you can see what it means, like maybe 140 or something. So then there is what we call refugees. For refugees, it is free of charge.
Okay.
As long as you get your notification from your place of birth, whether the hospital, because most of these refugee camps, they usually have these hospitals within, and they usually encourage them to give birth from there. Once you get that and your parent is there, he has a passport, he has a whatever ID of whatever country where they come from. So therefore they bring them to NIRA and we process them for free.
Okay.
So that is, I wanted to make that clear so that people can know at the stages and the processes.
All right. I hope we've exhausted
the birth bit of it.
Okay.
So you're talking about registration.
The numbers.
NIRA as an institution, we are really in a position to do that because we did it so in 2014. And as we talk, a very good number, if by percentage you ask me, I think we are at 90-something%.
Okay.
Close to 100. That every Ugandan apparently, they have national ID. And even when we come to renewal, which maybe is going to be talked about later at different forums, is that renewal will be handled the same way. And we're actually expanding even to some of the districts that we haven't reached. As an organization intends to reach there. We intend to reach every person because our service is more like demand driven. And therefore, government encourages us that we go deep down and reach to these people, even in what we call hard-to-reach areas or underserved areas, to make sure that these, because at the end of the day, every Ugandan, regardless of where you live, you need a national ID.
So you are present in some of the districts in Kampala, in Uganda, especially Kampala, Wakiso, Mukono, then you have Mbarara and other districts. I don't know if you're in northern Uganda already. And I'm just wondering, why is it that somebody registers from Wakiso and then gets their ID from Namulanda or somewhere else? It happened to me when I was registering, and I just wanted to understand, why is it that some people register in places and then are required to get their national IDs from other places far from where they registered? Or you register in Kololo and then they tell you, no, your ID is in Wakiso.
You talked about the issue of offices and how many we have. Like I told you earlier, like for example, Kampala, where we have 5 divisions. In all the 5 divisions, we have our offices operating.
True.
Plus Kololo headquarters, which is open Monday to Friday. So all these are offices. You're talking about northern Uganda. Actually, I think we are covering, like I told you, 118 districts across the country.
Wow.
Equally distributed. The most districts that we haven't reached are the very few that were created recently, the new administrative structures. But then you find also that if maybe, for example, I'll give an example of a district like, you find like you're in Fort Portal, and in 2015 or 16 or 17, they created Bunyangabo. So you find that now the registration officer of Fort Portal will extend to Bunyangabo because it is the next district. But even those ones also, we have a plan that they will be also given independent offices. So that one, numbers and the workforce and the energy, we are right and in the right position to serve Ugandans, and I believe that we will do our best. Then the thing of people registering from here, it could have been an oversight and 1 or 2 cases, because our data and our system, the way it operates, if you register from Mukono, you're supposed to pick your card from Mukono. Why? Because your data is in Mukono. And like we always say, when you're picking your ID, you must even put your biometrics to sign your card out. So there is no way I can be told that I registered from Kampala, but I'm being told to pick my ID in Mbarara, because my data is not in Mbarara. So I can't explain that, how that happened. Actually, our biggest problem people have been is like, they've been telling us is that, James, if I registered from Namulanda, like I said, but apparently I stay in Nakao. Why can't I get my card from this? But not say I registered from Namulanda and they are telling me to pick my card from Wakiso. It is impossible. Then what would have happened in most of the divisional offices here in Kampala especially and the neighbor metropolitan is that at some point we had created issuance centers. Issuance is where we're giving cards. So you'd find we put the data, we segment it to what we call parishes to make sure we reach everyone. So that's what could have happened. For example, I can say a district like Wakiso. The geographical, what can I call it? The geographical map of Wakiso is a bit funny. You find you're in Entebbe, you're in Wakiso. You're in Nansana, you are in Wakiso. You are in Ichira, you are in Wakiso. And you're in Ichengela, you are in Wakiso. So what happens to reach up? And then you find as NIRA, we have our main offices in Nansana. So what happens? What I will do, I will separate the data. And I say Entebbe, Chira, and this, Kasangata, and all this. I put it on different kits. And then I tell that the people who registered, yes, it is under Wakiso, but under Kasangat or Chira municipality or Entebbe municipality, you go and pick your cards from Entebbe municipality. So that is the issue that could have happened.
Okay. So should we get to the prices now? When you lose your ID, you're required to pay some money to the bank, and that is 50,000 shillings?
Yeah, sure.
Why? Why should we pay 50,000 shillings to renew an ID which was free of charge when we are being given to it?
Okay. It's actually, the process is called replacement.
Yeah, the replacement.
Now, the government of Uganda gives you an ID for free. But when you lose it, the burden goes back to you. And I'm thinking, even when when we were growing up, our parents used to teach us that sense of responsibility. That, you know what, James, I bought you that phone for the first time when you are joining university. But if you lose it, man, just see how to work it out yourself. So that's the whole instance, to make Ugandans responsible. Because if I may ask you, if you don't lose it, do you pay 50,000?
No.
Absolutely not. So meaning that one was also a deterrent on us being negligent. But we are saying, when you lose, and even the money is not too much, but when you lose the national ID, first of all, what is the procedure? Let's also discuss it. You go to the police and report that I've lost my national ID. You get a reference number. Why do we do that? Someone could have stolen your bag in the jam, and next time you find your card in robbery in Chengera. And then they will say, you know what, James? When we searched on the scene, at the scene, we found your national ID. Just imagine if you had not reported to police. So that's why we tell people, if you lose your bag, you lose your national ID, go to the nearest police and report, regardless of where you are. Get your reference. Police never loses documents. Get your reference. And when you get your reference, then go to the bank and pay and replace your card.
Okay.
So that if anything happens, you're safer. So that is the whole idea. Government gives you the first ID for free, but when you lose it, you pay it for yourself.
Okay. Why are you strict as National Identification and Registration Authority? Why are you very strict on the information that is on the national ID? If anything is wrong, a NIRA operations officer will just break it into pieces and throw it in the dustbin. Because of one mistake that is on the ID. Maybe a mistake in your name, or a mistake in your name or your date of birth. Why? Why is strict to that extent?
I'm trying to understand and comprehend that level of strictness, but I thought you were saying, why are we strict to our data?
Yeah.
I was in the tech world, there is what you call, there is a new understanding and a new language, that data is the new oil in the world. So data, apparently, everything is data. Maybe we'll talk about what data is in the long run and why government maybe has intensified that we must collect data, we must integrate data, and we know we must have the right data because that translates into planning. And that's the same thing that explains the birth registration and whatever. If your child is not registered, you don't have we don't know them. How is government going to plan? And that's the same information that translates to WUBOS, that goes to National Planning Authority, because at the end of the day they will know and we have these so many Ugandans, and therefore how do we plan for them? By 2040, 2050, how many Ugandans are we going to be having? That's why you must actually have your child registered and whatever, so that we have that data bank and the registry to say these are Ugandans that we have. So you're talking about the strictness. I don't know who is supposed to do that, because if someone really broke your card, actually, that one is criminal, because no one is supposed to break your card. How is it supposed to be broken or withdrawn from you? If I realize I made a card and there was an error, maybe in name or date of birth, they're what we call the requirements that one has. Actually, the transaction is called COP, change of particulars. And we always tell them, go to the lawyer. For example, if I'm adding a name, or removing a name, go to the lawyer. He does for you what we call a deed poll. When he does that deed poll, you go to Uganda Registration Service Bureau. You register for it. After registering for it, because that is the company, the organization mandated to do that, then they put it in a Uganda Gazette. That, James Keitirima to Buhaburwa is dropping to Buhaburwa, so is remaining by this. So it is put in a Uganda Gazette, and it is there. Then after that, you pay the 50,000 in the bank for change of particulars. Then you take your documents plus the old ID to NIRA. Okay. And then they capture you, they cross-check your things, you attach your academic, or the reason as why you want to change. Once you've put all that, they will capture your fingers, they will do everything, and then withdraw that old card because already it has an error and you've applied for a new one. There is no way I'm going to leave you with already a card which is in error. And I don't break it there because that is some level of arrogance that I'm going to break it there. So we hold them somewhere, and as an organization has means of destroying those cards that they have got from people, have errors or have been rectified.
Okay.
But not that we really break them or withdraw or throw them.
Okay.
That is not true.
All right. Thank you so much. We are still with James Keitirima from National Identification and Registration Authority. You can call it NIRA, and we are discussing birth certificates, national IDs, and death certificates. But we are going to take a very short break and return with more. Don't go away. We are powered. Well, of course, for comfort and luxury at its best, you need to go to Protea Hotel by Marriott Entebbe, located right after the airport, and you will get services that are above self. You will have a good time with your friends and your family. You're welcome back to Issues at Hand. It's me, Nowamani, with the program today. And of course, we are still looking at national IDs, registration, replacement, and every other thing to do with national IDs. We are discussing registration, especially from NIRA, and we have our guest in studio today. His name is James Keitirima, and he is telling us all about that. I'd like to start with an issue that we had hinted on a bit, but we hadn't really elaborated, and that is to do with the expiring IDs. Why does a national ID expire? And you are Ugandan. Do you cease to be a Ugandan after some time? No, we said we as people, we change. People change with time. And so you find that you are not who you were 10 years ago, which is why you require a renewal of that certificate. And NIRA already has your details. You don't need to give NIRA your details again. They are just doing a replacement. But let's let James Keitirima answer this question.
I like the response already. We can you're doing it justice.
Okay.
So already, like why we are renewing, like you said, one, we are updating actually your information. And like I earlier told you, people change. So many of us, when we did this card 10 years ago, now in 2014 it's going to be 10 years ago, probably I didn't have this beard or whatever. So if for security reason and identification I presented something, actually they can say this person is not the same as the one that appears on the national ID. I don't remember, I had gray hair like I do now. So that is basically that. And then secondly, the new national ID that is going to come is going to be more advanced and enhanced with so many security features. Because like maybe we're going to get there. Like you were saying, there's a lot of fraudsters. There are people trying to deprecate our national ID. And every other time, you know, when you do something 10 years, continuously see how you can improve it and make it better. Okay. And that is our strategy. There is nothing like your citizenship expiring. There is nothing that your name or what we call your unique identifier is going to change. Maybe if you prefer to change your place of residence because by then you are in Gulu, now you are in Kampala, of which that one is negligible. But most important is that we are going to give a card that has better security features that can hardly be duplicated or done on our streets here in Kampala and the other parts of the country, but also to go to give you to update as a person physically. A lot has changed, so there is nothing. And again, why are you worried? Government is not even asking you a single coin, but is saying we're going to do this for you. We're going to, even the collection of data, you know, people, we must accept sometimes that even when you're doing it, sometimes there is then some data that we left out that today we are looking at and saying, you know, we didn't mark this. Now, how can we add it there? I always use an example, like, for example, if you find, like, maybe when we're beginning, you find putting your telephone number on your enrollment form was maybe not necessary. But today we are saying it is mandatory. Because it is easier if you got this card and you call me James, there's this card, someone left it on our desk. I can log onto the system and look at the national and the number, the telephone number, whatever, and we call this person to come and pick their cards. So there is nothing. Ugandans should not be worried that what we are doing is either going to cost them or that is going to change their nationality. Nothing. Everything will remain the same. Your NIN number will remain the same.
Thank you so much. As you have heard it, your new number remains the same. All you need to do is just upgrade your old card to a new one. And of course, who doesn't like an upgrade? Everybody does. And let's get to the fraudsters now. I'd like to end with that for the national IDs part. Then we move to the death certificate. Now, there's very many people who go down here at NASA and process a national ID. In 2 minutes, they have a national ID from NASA Road. How are you, as NIRA, fighting this situation?
Because what also bothers me is how someone in this scenario, NIRA is giving national IDs for free, but you choose to go to NASA to have a fake
money.
ID, actually to pay money for a fake ID. That also beats my understanding. But Ugandans have their own choices, and I can't blame them. But the biggest problem, and I must put this right, is that we like, or we love, or we are people who love shortcuts and chap things. And then I was going to talk about most Ugandans who have been cheated, trust me, Carlo, it's because they love chap. Quick. How can I have my national ID in one day? This is a Ugandan who lost a national ID like 5 years ago or 3 years ago, but he's not bothered. They only wait when need comes in, and then he's running up and about, and then they tell you, you see our NIRA minimum time is maybe 2 weeks because of the volumes, like I told you. We are handling 140-something districts, so many, 45 million Ugandans, or so these million. Every day you find like over 6,000 applications coming, and so they cannot be processed. Of course, other challenges of maybe of human resource and whatever in terms of numbers. So, and someone now will choose to go to NASA to have that fake ID, even when they are paying. But remember, NIRA is giving that ID for free. So we are telling Ugandans, prepare early enough. If your card gets lost and maybe you're replacing, please get a police letter, go replace your card. You will have it. In Kampala, for example, now IDs, even in 1 week, your ID is out. And so many viewers who are out there, they can tell me in Wakiso, Kampala Central, Lumumba Avenue, in Entebbe, in Kawempe, Makindye, Rubaga, all these people are getting, we've given Kampala a priority. And even other districts have been given a priority. But here in Kampala, people get their IDs in 1 week and so you wonder why someone should go down there. And it is going to be a role of all security agencies. I'm not going to say for us in NIRA, our mandate is not actually to execute or to enforce. But we are telling Ugandans, if one day you're caught in the wrong and you have that fake ID you've gone and done on the street, the repercussions are so clear. The hand of the law will catch up with you. So less Ugandans desist things of shortcuts, things of quick. At the end of the day, so many people out there want money, and they will take advantage of you. Don't be cheated. We have all these offices across the country. You go there and inquire and say, what does it take? What do I need? And you'll have right information, because we have very good professional people in most of these offices, and they will give you free information.
Thank you. Maybe let's end with the people in the diaspora. How can someone in the diaspora process their national ID in case it goes missing?
Yeah, the diaspora areas, we've opened a few offices because of finances, and apparently the economy is not at its best because of so many factors that we cannot discuss here. But we've had areas where we believe that there are so many Ugandans. For example, when you look at Canada, you look at UK, you look at Middle East, Abu Dhabi and whatever, South Africa, there we've put our offices, working together with immigration. And these offices, you can go there, replace your ID. Even not actually only replacing, people even register from there. As long as you have all the requirements, you register from there, your data is brought in here, your card is printed and processed, and through DHL and other means, courier means, those cards are sent to the embassies. We do believe that if budget allows, we'd want to even reach so many of our embassies, yes, other countries. And we usually actually, almost every close of the year, we usually have an outreach in those countries we reach so many Ugandans. We go to Boston, we've been to Canada, we've been to New York, we've been to where. So we reach so many Ugandans who are yearning for our services. And the diaspora, we have no problem.
Okay.
The biggest problem maybe we might be having is expansion, to make sure that we reach
More
where we have our
places.
embassies, to make sure that we can also have our offices there.
Okay.
But when budget allows, I think management is considering that very well.
Thank you so much. Let's get to the death certificates. Can someone fake a death certificate? I would like to start from there.
You know, faking is a choice, like I told you.
I'm looking at somebody who has an inheritance from their parents who passed on, and the bank is demanding for a death certificate. So they run to NASA and...
Yeah. Now, maybe this brings me to explain how maybe the acquisition for a birth certificate. A birth certificate, maybe you brought it as you wanted us to discuss this last because of its importance.
The death certificate.
Yeah, the death certificate, because of its importance and the magnitude and even so many challenges we are seeing around the country. A death certificate, almost the processes are not the same as the birth, but also it has its own processes. For example, and this is going to begin, we are going to begin with what we call the hospital death. This is whereby someone dies maybe from Lago, from Rubaga, and a postmortem is done, and the cause of death is established. So once all those things have been done, what are you required of? You're required of to go with your postmortem report, your cause of death certificate, plus your death notification. That facility that has worked on your body, that has worked on your loved one who passed on, they should be able to give you those things. And when they give you those things, what are you supposed to do? We have what we call the notifier. Who has notified that death? Sometimes we look at the biological people in terms of like children, maybe the wife and a relative. Or even if you bypass and you found someone maybe by the roadside and you carried them to the hospital and they died from there, the law allows you, because you will specify that, no, me, I'm a friend, or I'm a bypasser, or I picked him, or I'm a police officer in that regard. So once you have those things, then you go and equally pay what we call 5,000 in the bank. When you pay 5,000 in the bank, what are we required of now? We're looking at the paperwork. You already have a postmortem report, a cause of death certificate, a notification. You've paid 5,000 in the bank. We usually say that the notifier in this regard, if you've put was the mother or the son or the daughter of the deceased or something, put your photocopy of the national ID. And then once you attach it there, you take these papers to NIRA, you also get your death certificate.
Okay.
The difference that happens, like I told you, all our death certificates and birth certificates, once we issue it, the data remains on our servers. The data remains on our system. That, like I told you, for generations and generations to come, that information will be there. If you're out there, and maybe we usually get these calls from the Administrator General's office, because they're the ones who process letters of administration and all that, they usually tell us and say, James, I have a birth certificate, track number this. Can you verify it for me? Is it in the system? That's how we get to know. And even our birth certificate has got a little bit of complex features that these people on the streets, it is hard for them to duplicate them. So even when they try, and I hold that paper like me who works there, I will tell you this is fake. They cannot afford our seals, the kind of seal we put in. They cannot. We know our registrars who are supposed to sign on those births.
Okay.
So yes, there is a lot of forgery, but those death certificates have been caught because the people responsible now know what it takes and what an original birth certificate is, death certificate, sorry. And when you do this, for example, people have been asking, how do I get letters of administration of the estate of the deceased? You cannot proceed without a death certificate. So you must first acquire these things, and once you acquire them, then go to the Administrator General or to the court, and you start for application of this. Right. That is what we call a hospital death. And so a community death is also the same, like I told you. I was bedridden at home, and so someone dies. You know, what do you need to do? You just go to the sub-county or the town clerk. Sometimes we even request that the chairperson LC1 writes, confirms that so and so Mutebere, so and so, a citizen of this, died on this and died at his home, this date of this, and therefore I confirm to this. You go with that letter, you go to the sub-county, you go to the town clerk, he gives you a notifier, and that letter and the birth and the death notification, you carry them with you to our place.
Okay.
And then you process.
Interesting. How can one register for a death certificate when the person died earlier? You understand? I saw that question on your Twitter, on that NIRA Twitter, and I said I'd ask today.
Yeah, it is a bit complex, and apparently to many of us who signed those documents, we've been so careful, because the moment you don't do due diligence, we've got so many cases of fraud, we've got so many cases of people wanting to take things that don't belong to them. You know, society somehow has lost values, and it's very unfortunate. And so what we are doing, that's why we become so stringent and saying that the death that occurred in the 90s and below, when we say 90s and below, maybe up to 1900. We can say maybe from 1900 up to the 1990s. We know, we've said that those death certificates, what do you need? Now their requirements are slightly different from these deaths that are so current. The difference is here. We say that the chairperson LC1 writes a letter and confirms the same, that this person died here in this and this and this. And then you take that letter with you. You go to the district CID office. Formerly, we used to do it from Kolola, the headquarters, but later we decentralized it, and we gave the powers to all the CID officers in the heading the districts, that it is their responsibility. Now the CID officer has the responsibility to go to the village, makes investigations, know that this person was buried here, what was his name, who are the parents, when did he die, and most times even where people write on the grave and whatever, they even take pictures. After that, they make a report. An independent report, and I must add that. Not that you're going to coerce them or even bribe them. They make an independent report. Once they make that independent report, then you can attach the same that we've talked about. You can attach a notification. And in this regard, you can attach the ID of the notifier, who is the son or the wife or whatever, or immediate relative who is processing those documents. You pay in the bank, and then we do that. But when the CID notices a bit of contradiction or conflict of something of sort, they have the right to stop that and say, do not proceed, because the information we found out is not clear. So that's why we empowered them and say they are the people responsible and the best in that area. So let them inform us. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. Our time is fast spent, but we do thank you so much for being a part of Issues at Hand this morning. Thank you so much, Mr. James Keitirima, for making time for us and explaining all this. And we do thank you so much, our viewers. Keep It Family TV. We do have our social media platforms. That's at Church of Uganda Family TV on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, as well as on YouTube, where you can watch our different subsequent videos. My name is Nowamani. Stay blessed. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.